Who is it? Who is it? Goodness, I'm trying to read my Psalms. Who is it? Oh, hi.
Hey, did you forget I was coming by?
No.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for this party. All my guests are about to arrive. Okay, so I have so much stuff to do. Gotta get my punch bowl out and gotta get some chips and, I don't know, gotta make sure there's soap in the bathroom and, oh wait, but I gotta make sure that the water's cool because, we don't want room temperature water. Okay, just got so much stuff to do. Oh my gosh, people are here. Oh, I'm excited. Hey.
Oh, wow, you were fast. You must have been expecting me.
Come on in.
Oh, yes.
That was Jacob as the door, by the way. Nice work. Thank you guys for your help. I love hosting parties. Even as a child, I can remember being a part of the planning of my birthday parties. Where was the party going to be? What was the cake going to look like? What games were we going to play? And even when my husband Eric and I lived in a 400 square foot apartment, there was hardly room for just the two of us, let alone the dog, we still figured out how to have parties. And oh my, how we love themes. We have had a Mexican-themed party, complete with homemade taco salad bowls. We have had an Academy Award show watching party, complete with a food item, one for each of the nominated films. That takes skill, let me tell you. I've had the youth and the gathering over to our house for barbecues and for Christmas parties. And next month, we'll even host a pumpkin-themed party for our clergy colleagues with, you guessed it, all the pumpkin snacks and desserts you could ask for. Come to think of it, maybe we just like to eat. Even though I love being the hostess with the mostess, having people over is a lot of work, isn't it? I'm not really known for being the most tidy gal, but when people are coming over, I scrub the house from top to bottom. Actually, maybe that's why Eric likes having parties. You've got to figure out the menu, right? And then there's all the cooking. And then once the guests arrive, you have to be on your game, make sure that everybody is having fun. And then when the night is over, there's always this huge mountain of dishes, and you have to decide if you're going to do them then or in the morning. Having guests over is a lot of fun, but it's also a lot of work. Let's pray. Gracious and hospitable God, open our ears that we may hear the word that you have for us. Open our eyes that we might see the world around us. Open our hearts that we might receive and respond to your plan. Amen. Have you ever thought about the folks that come into our church as guests coming over for a party? The skit that we saw this morning did a great job of helping us see the differences between when you're expecting someone and when, well, you're just not. We don't know for sure, but chances are that in the first scene, Tim must have forgotten that Evan was coming over. So we probably didn't have anything prepared for her. But in the second scene, it was clear from the very beginning that Evan had put a lot of time and energy into getting ready for her guests. It was clear that she was expecting somebody to come over. We usually talk about people that come to our church as visitors, but I wonder what it would be like if we thought about them instead as guests. As I said before, having guests is a lot of work, though, isn't it? When you have guests, most of the time, they're your friends. And in our situation, that's not always the case. We don't know folks, as we talked about this morning. We certainly don't know their names. We don't know why they've come today, and we don't know what they're looking for. So in some ways, it's even harder than having people over to your house. But we need to better prepare for the guests that are coming into our house. Now, I do not want to hear you saying, I know I always give disclaimers, but I don't want to hear me saying that we are horrible at welcoming people into this church, because we're not. We are not. We would not be the group of people that we are sitting right here if we were the least friendly place around. But that doesn't mean that we can't get better, right? That doesn't mean that we can't get better. So before we go on, I want to talk about a couple of the assumptions that I make as I come to this sermon. And I need you to really think about, you don't have to talk about it with anybody, I promise, but I do want you to think about whether or not you have these same assumptions. I'm assuming that we want guests in our house, that we want people to come in. So think about that for a second. Do we want guests? Now, it's perfectly normal, and there is nothing wrong when people don't like it when guests come over. My mom is an example of that. She could rather just never have a guest in her house. In fact, the first time that my husband came over, it was sort of a big deal. And so it's okay to have private space. There's nothing wrong with that. But I wonder if the same goes for the church. Can we have that sort of private attitude about our church? I think that is pretty far the opposite from what Jesus said. Jesus wasn't the most direct of fellows, but when it came to welcoming people, and especially people that were different, he did not beat around the bush about it. The other assumption that I have is that we are interested and willing to become better at welcoming guests. So think about that one for a second. And am I actually willing to do these things that we've been talking about to welcome guests? Am I willing to come to church and not only talk to my friends, do that too, don't get rid of that, but to not only talk to my friends, but to talk to folks that I don't know or that I don't know well? Perhaps interacting with new people comes easy for you, and that seems like something you can do easily, but chances are it's pretty uncomfortable for most of us. Even for me, who talks to new people all the time, I let that name thing get in the way because I've worked here for over 3 years now. You guys expect me to know you, and I don't know all of you. I know most of you, but not all of you. And so I let that become a barrier, and I'm hoping that together we can break down those barriers. So I have a feeling that there might be some scriptures that could help us with this. Oftentimes when I have a problem, I turn to the scriptures to see what we can do to be better. And I know that it's not as common as it used to be for us Methodists to bring our Bibles to church with us anymore, but we're going to be covering a lot of ground. So I laid some Bibles out on the seats. There should be about 3 to a row. So if you're interested in following along, I would invite you to do that. The first text that we're going to be working from today comes from the book of Luke. And it's the angel announcing to Mary that she will be the first person to welcome Jesus as a guest, right? Mary was the first person to welcome Jesus. So if you're following along, we're going to be in Luke chapter 1, verse 28. Greetings, favored one. The Lord is with you. But she was much perplexed by his words and pondered what sort of greeting this might be. The angel said to her, "Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid." So just these 4 sentences right there tell us some very important things about what it means to welcome guests, and specifically to welcome Jesus as a guest. Number 1, it makes you special, right? Greetings, favored one. It makes us special. Mary was chosen. She was important. Number 2, it tells us that it can be confusing and scary. The angel says that she was perplexed, and then the angel says, "Do not be afraid." So Mary was confused, and she was scared. Later, if you go down just a little bit, in verse 34, we hear Mary's question to the angel. She simply says, "How can this be? How can this be?" And so from that, we can learn that it's okay to have questions, right? It's okay to have questions when we're asked to do something new. Now, we might not think about all of those that walk through the door as Jesus, but I have a feeling that we might see them differently if we did. But we would also see that that actually makes us special too. We are welcoming others. We're the favored ones. We have the important task of birthing God's love into the world, just like Mary. Okay, maybe a little bit different than Mary, but. And just like Mary, it's okay for us to have questions, to be confused, and to be scared. In 2 weeks, we're going to be asking you to welcome Jesus into the world in a different way by asking you to change the way that you worship. It's natural to have questions about that, and it's natural to maybe even be a little afraid. I know that I am scared about what's going to happen in 2 weeks. I can be transparent about that. I am excited. I'm looking forward to a different type of worship style. And I am, with time, hoping that we will reach people with God's love in a way that we otherwise would not have. But even in the midst of all of that excitement, I lay awake at night fearing the worst. It's okay to be scared. Also, please hear me saying, and please tell others, that Paul, after he returns to the country, Paul and I are more than happy to talk to you about your questions and your confusions. Please hear me saying that. Now, it's important to point out, though, that Mary's questions to the angel did not magically mean that she wasn't pregnant anymore. And so sharing your concerns doesn't mean that we're just going to scrap everything that we have planned. But as we welcome others more similarly to Jesus, The church staff cannot know how we might better bring Jesus into your life if you don't talk to us. A few verses later, after the angel has quieted her fears and her questions have been heard, in verse 36, Mary pretty confidently says, "Here I am." And so we can be scared when we are asked to do new things, but then we must let go and allow God to work within us. Okay, so the next place that Jesus is a guest is not too much later. We'll stay in Luke and just go a little bit further down in chapter 2. Mary is now bursting at the seams, ready to bring Jesus into the world. Maybe more importantly, at that current moment, no longer house him as a guest any longer. But it's time for the census. And so Mary and Joseph have left the comforts of their home only to find a very crowded city without a hotel room to be seen. Too bad they didn't have iPhones back then, because now I'm pretty sure we would have just made a reservation while we were riding along on our donkey, right? Would not have been a problem. So anyway, in verse 7, we read, "And she gave birth to her firstborn son and wrapped him in bands of cloth and laid him in a manger, because there was no place for him in the inn." No room in the inn for Jesus? Really? By the way, haven't you ever wondered why Mary didn't throw her weight around here? I mean, if you were giving birth to God's son, wouldn't you, use that to your advantage and get a bed? I don't know. It's probably a good thing I wasn't married. So what can we learn from this statement? Because there's no room in the inn. It might be hard for us to make the parallel, right? As we look around, we say to ourselves, there's plenty of room here. We extend hospitality all the time. We have plenty of donuts and coffee ready, and our classes are always open to new people. But I can't help but wonder how many people have walked through our doors and felt like there was no room in the inn. It's true. We don't close the door in people's face like we picture the innkeeper doing. But think for a second how door closing in your face it might feel to walk through our fellowship time and to have no one talk to you. Some of you have heard me talk about when I came to our church for the first time. I was an ILIF student, and I was looking for a church to do my internship with. I entered from the south doors, and I remember having a really hard time figuring out where worship was even being held. So I knew I was coming to a contemporary service, and all the contemporary services I had been to happened in a space like this. So I walked in and couldn't figure out where church was happening. I know that I must have looked confused, but other than the specific greeting time that we have during worship, only one person said anything to me that morning, and that was LaRue Benish. And LaRue also helped me find the children's Sunday school rooms downstairs, a task that I probably would have struggled with on my own. No room in the inn. The story begs the question, if the barn was suitable for Mary to sleep in, why wasn't one of the innkeepers willing to sleep there themselves and give the pregnant woman their warm bed? In what ways can we make sacrifices to make room for Jesus in the inn? Lastly, let's turn all the way, we're still in Luke, let's turn all the way to the beginning of chapter 19. Jesus and Zacchaeus. So we know this story pretty well. Zacchaeus is hanging out in a tree, and he's trying to just get a glimpse of this Jesus guy that everybody keeps talking about. Now put yourself in Zach's shoes for a second. You're hanging out in the tree when all of a sudden the dude you've been looking for shows up at the bottom of the tree and says, pretty simply, "Get down from there, I'm coming over for dinner." What? All those things that we were talking about earlier about getting ready for a party, I can't imagine that Zacchaeus would have done those before he left his house to go hang out in the tree that day. He didn't have a menu planned. He didn't have the house tidied up. In fact, he hadn't been to the store all week, and he didn't even have a microwave meal to offer the Savior of the world. So, I don't know about you, but if I was Zacchaeus, I think I would have been tempted to be like, so Jesus, today is just really not a good day. Could you come over tomorrow? Or what about next Friday? Are you free then? Now, for any of you Bible people, you'll notice that Good Friday is next Friday. But anyway, Bible joke. So that's not what Zach did, though. That is not what Zach did. He didn't make a single excuse. He wasn't ready. And he welcomed Jesus with open arms anyway. And in many ways, this section is really, for me, I'm talking to myself, we might not feel ready personally or physically. Our new atrium space, it's probably not going to be done, the whole thing, until like the middle of next year. Our downstairs hallways, they could sure use another coat of paint, and we could really use some more life group leaders. But ready or not, we have to welcome Jesus without excuse. What would it be like if we thought about every Sunday as a party that we were well prepared for? If we had honored guests instead of visitors? If we let the angels quell our fears and then, like Mary, say, "Here I am"? What if we made room in our inn for all of those that need refuge? What if we thought of each soul that walks through the door, whether it's for the first time or the 400th time, as Jesus walking through that door? Amen.